Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Janina, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you. Welcome to this special mini-series where we take a closer look at the people and organisations in the wine world who are championing diversity, equity and inclusion. So across these episodes, I'm going to be sitting down with inspiring voices from winemakers and educators to change makers across the industry, all doing meaningful work to shape a more inclusive future for wine. These conversations are designed to uplift, to challenge and to leave us all reflecting on how we can make positive changes in our own spaces, whether that's in the vineyard, the tasting room or the boardroom. While we may not be diving quite as deep into the usual wine geekery this time around, I promise you'll still walk away with plenty to think about, fresh perspectives and perhaps a few new producers to discover, all rooted in purpose. I hope each episode leaves you feeling just a little bit more inspired than when you started. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Alex Cata, Senior Manager of Global Development at WSET, the world's leading wine education body. We are diving into everything from the evolution of WSET and what makes its courses so unique to the importance of accessibility and inclusion in wine education. Plus, Alex shares how the WSET is actively driving social impact in the industry and what we can all do to make wine more welcoming and diverse. So pour yourself a glass of wine and enjoy part 7. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. I guess I maybe should start with a slight introduction for you, which is you work for the WSET, but you're not actually an educator. And even I was like, there are more jobs in the WSET. So let me hand over to you. How did you become who you are at the WSET?
Yeah, so thanks, Janina. So that I'm I'm a senior manager of global development at the WSET. And like you say, there's lots of different roles at the WSET. We have a school, the WSET School London, which is probably how most people have heard of us. And we have some amazing teachers there teaching all our different courses, wine, beer, spirits and sake. But also, we fundamentally make materials and we make the exams. We also mark the exams. We're Ofqual regulated. So arguably some of the most important roles at WSET are the people that actually process the exams and make sure that 150,000 exams a year are processed and people get their certificates and their pins and things like that. But there's lots of jobs. And mine is basically helping to promote the WSET way. I'm kind of carrot and stick. I'm very much the carrot. So I do a bit of teaching. I do a bit of promoting. I talk to some students who are asking about, where should I do? What should I do if I want to get into the industry? And it's all the fun stuff, really.
Good. Well, okay, let's go through this. So for anybody who doesn't really know, who is new, let's say, to the world of wine education, first of all, what exactly is the WSET? You've mentioned a few of the courses. What does it stand for?
Yeah, so WSET was founded in London in 1969, and it's the Wine and Spirits Education Trust. And we have currently, I think it's about 9 qualifications in 4 what we call kind of different kind of streams. And wine is our main one. It remains our main one. But what's also very important for us is spirits, sake. And recently, I forget now, probably about 3 years ago, we started with beer as well.
I know.
Yeah, really good courses. I was involved in some of the starting up of that. So we offer a variety of courses going from, beginner. We say we take you from beginner to expert. So from a 1-day course to our flagship course, which is like the diploma, which takes about 2 years to do.
And for anybody who is not in the industry, can you remind everyone that this is open to effectively anyone? You don't need to be a wine professional, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and in fact, quite often people aren't. And it's interesting to see sometimes in different countries, there's a different split. But yeah, basically,
really?
If you want to kind of, for enthusiasts or whatever you want to call that, for people for a bit of fun, they do our courses to kind of dip in and have a bit of fun, try something new. But also it's for professionals wanting to dip their toe into the industry and start. And it's But again, within that, it's lots of different parts of the industry. There's hospitality, there's distribution, there's retail. It's all very useful. But again, it's also done with a bit of fun. So people, when you do the in-person class, there's always samples involved. So people actually get to kind of, as long as your personal beliefs, etc., allow for it, you get to sample the wine as well.
That's a great segue. Thanks, Alex. The WSET is known for its structured blind tasting. And that is something when I come, when I'm doing wine tastings for consumers, it's always, how do I smell? What am I even looking for? So, how important is blind tasting in learning about wine compared to, say, like the theory or the practical experience, in your opinion?
So it's blind tasting is very important. I think what we talk about the DNA of tasting, and this goes for all of it. So I will be obviously mainly talking about wine, but it's relevant for our beer courses, our spirits courses, and sake. And we talk about the DNA of tasting. We kind of do a nice image of one of those kind of double helixes, and it's the theory and the tasting inform each other. So they're both important for both, really, to be honest. I think what I was saying, tasting on its own, is this is an experiential thing. We could be selling shower fittings, and that's absolutely fine for a living, but we're not. We're selling wine, and so it's quite fun if we can involve it. But how it informs, to give an example, is, say, if I don't know what red wine I've got, and we're doing a bit of theory and a bit of tasting, basically. So if I smell something and I smell ripe fruits, that will suggest that it's probably from a warm climate, because my theory has taught me that. If I see a lot of color, it will suggest that the grape's got a thick skin. If I smell spice, it will suggest that maybe it's used oak. And so it's a bit of both, really, and they inform, and as a result, you get better learning and you can guess the wine. Now, obviously, as we both know, it helps if the wine is particularly well made and there's very good quality, because if it's like a generic entry-level pub wine, which is obviously, as soon as people know that you're in the wine trade, they go, oh, tell me what this is. And that can be quite hard, but that's the theory, basically. So it's really important, but it kind of informs the theory as well. Both bits are almost as important.
Well, I mean, you've got I use it regularly, and I imagine anyone, whether they are actually a WSET educator or you're just hosting a wine tasting session, the systematic approach to tasting that has been developed through the WSET is brilliant. So, okay, thinking this, and of course it's not actually in front of us, it's in our head. What advice would you give to someone who wants to elevate their tasting skills? Like, where should they start? And I'm just obviously, thinking about what you've written down.
No, there's lots of ways, really, to how to kind of elevate your tasting. I think especially in the current climate, we have to be, do what you can afford, obviously, because the answer is taste, taste, taste. I would suggest, and I was talking to colleagues about this as well, like what's the best way to do this? If possible, go with a colleague or go with colleagues who are perhaps even more experienced with the SAT. Not necessarily better. We don't talk about better or worse. Everyone's just trying, and people taste in different ways. That's the really key thing. You will smell something in a different way than what I would smell, obviously. But it's go there, try lots of things, try. Don't stay within your comfort zone. I personally love trying anything Italian, but that means if I just do that, I'm never going to learn about Hungarian wine or German wine. So you have to keep on trying, and then you basically kind of essentially riff off each other using the systematic approach to tasting. The systematic approach to tasting is a guide, it's a base, it's a kind of launch pad. Now, obviously, we go from beginner to expert and it gets more complicated and more nuanced. But the key thing to say is, I think it's a really good way. There are other ways. I'm not here to say there is only one existing tasting. It's really popular. Look at the number of people that do it. But it gives you a foundation, and it gives you some structure in an objective a way as possible of how to define the wine. So you assess it, what the wine is, and then you try to evaluate the quality. And what's good about that is you don't have to be just because you're a first growth doesn't necessarily mean that you're an exceptional wine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so you try to look at things that you don't have to be really expensive to be a great wine, and that's what we try to do. Now, what you do with that information is up to you. Then after that, you build on it. And if you want to be more flowery about your language, et cetera, et cetera. But what we really give you is that basis to kind of take it apart, the wine, in a flexible way. And then just, how you use that information is up to you.
It's so right. When I am doing a tasting and I say to someone, I can smell strawberries, I can smell rhubarb, I can smell licorice, all of a sudden people go, Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can smell it as well. And of course, once you give somebody something for them to think about, now they've got a basis. So actually, for them to have the systematic approach in front of them, and there's a list of red fruits as an example. So you've got your red currants and your cranberries and your raspberries and your red cherries.
Yep.
But if you're literally looking at those words and you're smelling the wine and going, can I smell red cherries? Maybe not. No. Can I? And then you think, oh, okay, I'll go across to the black fruits then. Black cherries, black. Oh, actually, do you know what? Now that I'm looking at those words and I'm thinking about my memory. Yes. Okay. So actually, I think I love that. I totally agree. The more that someone who has more experience takes you through, you really get an in. But actually, even just having the systematic approach in front of you, it's already suggesting things and you just need to go like a tick list.
Yeah.
Can I? No. Can I? Oh, yeah. And I think that's useful.
Yeah. And when a lot of people do their diploma, you start kind of rifling through cupboards trying to get different smells because you don't have necessarily those flowers or something like that, and you want to, what are violets? It's the wrong time of year. How am I going to smell what they told me a Barolo has violets or whatever. But it's worth it because then those memories you become associated with a particular wine. For me, almonds is always like Valpolicella, and I always think of something Italian, and I think of cherries. I like cherries, I like almonds, and then I start feeling happy. But the other point is why it's flexible is obviously we've talked about quite Eurocentric fruit, and by extension quite American fruit as well. I do a lot of work in India, and we do a lot of work in general in China and Southeast Asia, really important markets for us and for the wine industry. And they don't necessarily have all those fruits there. So the flexibility of the systematic approach to tasting is, of course, you can use local fruit there. It's far more relevant if, I can't think of a good example now having brought it up, but like if they don't have the particular strawberries that we have or the particular gooseberries, the gooseberries there are definitely different. And so they use different things. Mango, for example, is the one when I was in Calcutta recently. We talk of mango as mango, but obviously they talk about ripe mango, they talk about green mango, they talk about lots of different nuances, which most people there will understand. And I was going through a wine, giving all these wonderfully Eurocentric things, and they were talking about the nuances of mango, and it was wonderful because I was completely lost. But I bet you had to trust them, and it makes it work for everyone around the world.
Interesting. And actually just talking about that, the fact that there are different fruits and there are smells and aromas that people based on their own culture or where they grew up will not know. What about wines? Like there are many people who are listening to this podcast. The majority are UK and America. But as I mentioned to you, there are people all over the world on wonderful little islands that may not be able to get hold of specific wines. So do you have some interesting, I don't know, alternatives, for the typical wines, things that people could taste to start understanding different components or structures of wines? I'll leave that open to you.
Yeah, so different types of I'm really interested by grapes that are off the beaten track, I guess. Okay. I love, don't get me wrong, I love Pinot Noir. I love Cabernet. Pinot Noir when it's made well, which is obviously so hard and so expensive. But and I love Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc, but you get it everywhere. And it's just, and typicity it's a skill, getting it tasting in a particular way. But I want to try something different. And I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts about the two people who had the vineyard in the winery in northern Lebanon, and they talk about the Lebanese grapes. And because I've been over there a few times with work as well, and it makes it more interesting to try something particularly of the place. So I really like, my background is Spanish Italian, so I tend to go there. And so this isn't that strange, weird and wonderful, but I really like, for example, how they put together in Sicily Frappato and Nero Mascalese, for example. I'm going through a big period of reds, which you can see through, but are really tannic. I just like the look of them. I don't like something particularly oaky at the moment. And I like something zippy that wakes me up and keeps me going. With whites, on the other hand, I like something a little bit more with a bit more robust. But the other one I was thinking of recently was a white. So Pachoanque from southwest France. It's what I like about that grape is, so obviously it's in the same area as Madouan, but Madouan is red, as you well know. And it's just doesn't taste of Sauvignon or Chardonnay. It's its own thing, and it's unashamedly grapefruit, tropical fruit. You can do everything with it. You can do late harvest, you can do dessert wines. It's not too expensive, and it's really different. And it's just trying a wine, and it just feels amazing. And I've got two young kids, so I don't necessarily spend all my money on wine. But even like something from the Wine Society, which is always so reliable in the UK, and I don't work for them, but I'll happily say how reliable they are. But it's and it's like 15 quid, and it's a wonderful wine, and it's great.
Interesting. No, and amazing that you've mentioned something. I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that, but now you need to, the southwest of France is a really interesting region.
Yeah.
You know, everyone talks about Bordeaux, but just by going a little bit below that, there's a whole treasure trove of wines. I remember tasting my first Gaillac, a region making exceptional wines thousands of years before Bordeaux ever did. And you can explore the ancient indigenous grape varieties, like there's a white Lendelel, or the red Duras, Prune Lard, which is the forgotten father of Malbec. So yeah, this is a region I've always found fascinating. And the story being that although they were sending their wines downstream way before Bordeaux got famous, Bordeaux in the 13th century, I believe, basically blocked their access to trade so they could sell Bordeaux first. And as they were further down the river, there wasn't much they could do. And so yeah, that's why regions like Gaillac and Cahors, the home of Malbec, don't have the fame that Bordeaux now has. But everybody, go explore the southwest of France.
I mean, the other one I'd say, like I say, I do a lot of work in India, and I've been going to India now with work for 9 years, and they obviously, you can see a pattern. You start with the safe ones, because they originally, I think they decided you can either make a sweeping statement. I think they thought, do we go French style or do we go Italian style? And they went French style. So they wanted quite oaky reds. Now, obviously in oak, we talk about food and wine matching quite often. Oak kind of quite enhances spice. Now, not all Indian food is the same. It's very different. But in lots of regions, there are quite spicy foods. And so a really oaky, big red in a really hot, humid country with quite spicy food is not necessarily the way I'd go.
Yeah.
And because of the way they have two harvests in the year, which is fascinating. But they slowly but surely they're learning to use different grapes, and they're going, well, maybe we should look at some like Spanish grapes, or we should look at some kind of Southern Rhone grapes. You know, places which are really hot, and the grapes know what to do with it, and they produce something refreshing. And it's interesting to see that evolve, and to try with a different kind of angle, see how they're doing it as well.
It makes it's so exciting that there are so many wine regions as well that are up and coming and evolving. And then now you're touching on like food pairing. Absolutely. I wish everybody listening, just, if in doubt, just go rosé.
Absolutely. Always with food. Yeah.
Just literally, it's going to be great with umami. It's going to be great with spice. It's going to be great with vegetables. And actually, there's so many vegetables in Indian cuisine. But just in general, the freshness of a white, but with a bit more of the structure of a red, just go rosé and don't worry about anything else.
It's completely right. And they're learning that in India. The wine industry is growing, and they're realizing that rosé might be the way forward because it's a great food wine. Yeah.
Oh, it really is. Rosé is not just for summer, everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this mini-series is all about is actually what I labelled it: diversity, inclusivity, equity. But actually, as I've said in a few episodes, now I want to almost change it to humanity. It's about what actions do we take? Kindness. How do we think about people and do better? That's all it is. And so the reason that I actually wanted you onto the podcast is because you're doing incredible social things around the world that people actually may not know about. But before we get onto that, because that's the bit that I'm really excited about and I really want to know more, actually somebody who wants to do the WSET but does have added requirements, I was surprised that actually you are really open to making adjustments. You are working for accessibility and inclusion. So for a student with different needs, I think there's the whole list online of certain things that you can do, right, for everybody.
I think it's a work in progress. We're good, but we can always do more. And I think the first thing to say is that yes, get in touch with your provider or WST directly or me, whatever.
Yeah,
and we'll try and find a way. But yeah, we're working on it, and accessibility is really important. I think our current CEO Michelle, she came in 2022, and that was one of the things that she really wanted to kind of double down on the side. The positioning of us as part of the thing we're seeing, if you imagine like a bicycle, we're kind of in the middle and there's always spokes coming out, us in the middle of everything. But part of that is the social impact, because we can connect people to make more of a difference.
Yeah.
But the accessibility starts with the fact we're in 75 countries and we do our courses in 15 languages. But beyond that, you start drilling down and we have different ways of doing the courses. So we've talked about the in-class experience, which I happen to personally love, but it's not for everyone. We also do during COVID, which no one seems to talk about as much anymore, but there was a lot of
thing.
There was a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of that kind of form of teaching. That still happens for some things, a lot less. And we also have the kind of learning management system, the online classroom, as it were. Same courses, just done in a different way. And so that kind of, we try to find ways that it will work in a different way for different people. And so we have been learning with certain, one of our educators at the WSET school is visually impaired. And it was really interesting, his experience. We did a webinar recently, actually, for some internal training. And his experience there is really interesting because initially we weren't that flexible, and we learned that actually we had to be. So for example, he gave a particular example about the color of the wine, which obviously, well, he can't see it. But his approach was, there's 32 marks in a level 3. I'm going a bit granular, but there's a reason. There's 32 marks. It's only 2 marks for color. So his pragmatic point was, what does it matter? Just move on. Just do something and move on. But then we got to an understanding with our exams team that he was going to be told what color the wine is. And then from there, you can go on with it. So we're always listening and trying to be flexible. How are we doing that? So for example, sometimes we have the materials are available in different ways. So, we can have it in a PDF that's zoomable so that people can kind of in their own time look at it. And that can help a lot of people. In exams, obviously, in a more traditional sense, we allow extra time for certain needs. We also allow, the actual courses are taught in different ways. So one of the benefits of the online classroom is that it's not just, someone teaching, there's videos, but there's also kind of little snippets, there's quizzes, there's text, there's people learn in lots of different ways. I have 2 kids and they learn in markedly different ways. And it's about listening and understanding and finding a way of making it more accessible. We're teaching our educators to be more accessible, use language that's more understanding, find different ways, less traditional, in that kind of, I'm a man standing here telling you what to do kind of thing. Which you go to some places and things are still being taught in that way. And we're trying to kind of just approach it in a different way and make it because it's fun. It's fun to talk about wine. It's fun to study wine. So make the exam as fun as possible.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And so I feel that everything starts from education, whether it be you in the wine world or in life. The more education we have, the more opportunities we have, the more experiences we have, I think the more joy that can come into this world. And so I just wanted, instead of having the series of only wineries, this is where so many people can take their first step, the WSET. And so anybody listening that has some accessibility needs or is potentially visually impaired or needs more support, they just need to know that they can pick up the phone, that you guys are listening, that there are many things that are possible and that you're always open to discuss, right?
Yeah, it's really important. We do a lot of work with at the moment neurodiversity as well, and it's trying to understand the needs of some of the people in the staff. We have kids, we have family members who are neurodiverse, and it's something it's probably close to a lot of people's heart at the moment, actually, to be honest. It touches lots of people. And we want to work in an environment and offer products that they'll understand that and recognize the diversity that there is out there, I think.
So now, let me get to the social impact, because you're part of this working group. And when I discovered it, because I didn't realize, well done you guys for not necessarily screaming and shouting, but let's scream and shout a little bit about it. So you're part of this. What are you doing?
Yeah, so we're trying to it's part of this idea of making the courses and making education in wine and spirits and beer, sake, more accessible to everyone, because sometimes there are barriers out there. There may be geographical barriers, there may be social barriers, there may be financial barriers. And so we have a system, a kind of organization of partners of ours, gold, silver, bronze, who work with us, some of the big names in the industry. And with their help and with our kind of materials and our courses, we try to address some of these problems at little places where we can help. So we have lots of projects every year. And part of my role in global development, we go to various countries where we see we might be able to help. Now, I should stress we do a lot of work in the UK with people like the Drinks Trust, who do phenomenal work, and we support lots of projects here. The one I was going to give as an example is I did something in Angola recently, which was a really good example of a kind of tripartite agreement, as it were, between us, the Gerard Bassett Foundation, who are increasingly becoming a fundamental player in so many ways in the wine industry, and also Sogrape, the Portuguese. They won't want me to say but they are known for Mateus, other wines, it's some fantastic port as well. But I believe they sell a bottle of Mateus every minute. That's the factor that I'll be dining out on for the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But so they came to us with an idea that they wanted to do some work in Angola. Angola, for those that don't know, probably many do, it has past colonial ties with Portugal. And so they speak Portuguese there, obviously. And we thought we could help with and so long cut story short, there was an arrangement where we were picked out some people in the hospitality industry who wouldn't be able to afford education, the courses. We essentially gave them the materials, the exams. There was teaching as well. The facilities were given. And we've got if anyone wants to read more about it, it's on our website. And 14 people did it. We're going to be doing it again next year, hopefully. And they all passed. And hopefully it can have a transformational effect on their lives. I mean, this is the thing. I do a lot of work and I see people doing our level 1 in places like Kerala. And the next time I see their names pop up, they're in Dubai or in Singapore, and they followed to get a better job, and it's allowed them to earn more money for their families, follow their dreams into something, whatever that might want to be. They may want to be a sommelier, they may want to work in distribution, but they weren't able to get that first step. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Angola one. We were really trying to, people that couldn't afford, their monthly wages were a lot lower. Hopefully it will really help. We do other projects in India, like Women in Wine, for example. The clue's in the name, I think. And so we do a lot of work like that where, quite often people will kind of submit a kind of why I should be involved in this. The WSET is involved in kind of choosing who gets to go. And then always it's the exams and the materials are given, of course, free of charge. And people really enjoy it. They're relaxed. And we've tried to do an in-class experience as well. So people get to try the wines. And it's why I work for a charity. It makes me proud that hopefully it's making a little bit of a difference to people. They have a really good time, but it's also probably useful, hopefully, for their future lives.
Yeah. Incredible. The fact that you're saying people are leaving the countries to work in places where they can earn fantastic salaries and obviously help their family, which they wouldn't be able to do had they not had the education that they could not themselves afford. It's beautiful. It's so important that there are these initiatives that exist. So do you have a few other projects that are brewing?
Yeah.
The next one.
Yeah. So we're looking at, as I've probably mentioned a couple of times now, I do a lot of work in India and I'm looking at an LGBT kind of project there. So wait and see what happens with that. There's a lot of kind of delicate negotiations that happen there, but there's lots of kind of places where we think we can really help. There's a project in South Africa, which I should have mentioned as well, actually, and it's called the Pinatar Youth Development Academy. They're an establishment that are there. For those in the wine circle, they get quite well known. We've been supporting them for a few years now, doing a project where 50 level 2 are called, one of our courses, level 2 wines, we pay for and fund. And again, it's these people, you give people the skills to have these transformational effects and they go off and work in the industry. For that, it tends to be hospitality as well. And again, they're not given the opportunity. The APP, our course provider, sorry to use WSET jargon, the local one there called IWEC, they do the teaching and we happily provide the courses and exams free of charge. And again, we have these great stories of these young people in the industry taking their first step. And it's like I say, I've given a hint at it, but we have this global effect because I've talked about the one in Angola, the courses were in Portuguese, they weren't in English. Why do they need it in English? And then with that information, they can go and move to different places. Now, the people in Angola, their first port of call will probably be Portugal if they want to go and try something different. But obviously in the English-speaking countries, these people go to other English-speaking countries. And it's just fascinating to see how because you don't know where they're going to go with the information. We give them this wine knowledge, but we also give them its transferable skills. We've got levels from, I didn't mention before, we've got levels from 1 to 4. And once you get to levels 3 and 4, as you know, there's wine knowledge, but there's also transferable skills there, which can be used in every walk of life.
Well, how did you, doing your own WSET qualifications, how do you think that shaped the way that you think about, the way you talk about and drink wine?
Yeah, so I went into it. I was in retail before for Majestic Wine in the UK. I come from a family of teachers, and so it seemed to kind of be a useful way of doing it, and how I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't enjoy the courses. I believe in in what they do. They're a bit of fun, and they always evolve. They always change. But it gives me the angle of trying to look at something. I want to look at something different. I don't want to just necessarily go for something that's just because it's expensive, just because it's in front of me. I don't want to kind of necessarily accept that. I want to go for something weird and wonderful. The examples I gave of the wine were hopefully weird and wonderful. There's probably others even weirder. But for me, it just piqued my interest and kept me kind of being more inquisitive. And as I get older, sadly, there's not much I can do about my aging. But if you stay inquisitive, it just keeps you interested in life, but also in helping others as well, I think.
Do you know, it's so true. I have a friend who is part of 67 Pall Mall as a wine member. Anyone who doesn't know, this is a wonderful wine club that is based in London, but now there's several around the world. And she took me there, and she just loves the Bordeauxs and the Burgundies and the Champagnes because she loves wine, but she doesn't know as much about wine. So she goes to the standard regions, and this time we went, she was in charge of paying for everything. She has a slightly bigger wallet than I do, so I was very happy to let that happen. And she was like, is this one okay? And I was like, well, it is. It's incredible. It's a second growth Bordeaux, and this is she was picking these wonderful wines. But I kept on saying to her, you don't have to be spending £30 a glass. Like, why don't I find you some wines that are £7 a glass? And she was looking at me like she was so confused. And so eventually she promised that I will take her for one day where I'm in charge. I'm going to pay. And I'm going to find her the best value wines on the list. And so she would never think to, I don't know, go for a Furmint, the Furmint grape, perhaps from Hungary as a still wine, because she's not had that experience. And they can be incredible and vibrant and fresh white wines. Or, in fact, I absolutely adore Fetească Regală, some of the Romanian grape varieties that can be such incredible value. So it's really fun that it's something that I have the confidence to not spend so much money because I'm aware of grape varieties that exist or comparison wines. And it's not just about, okay, if I just buy a bottle that retails at £50, it's going to be good. So it actually doing the wine education course, it saves you money, doesn't it, Alex?
But that's the thing. It's interesting. There were two things of that. One, you mentioned Fetească. In another life, I lived in Romania for a year, and it was before I did any wine trading. So I just remember those grapes because they were cheaper and I just remember necking a lot of this stuff and not let's say not appreciating it because I was maybe a bit younger, but you don't forget like Fetească Neagră, Fetească Regală. But the other bit was it's what we try to give you is that one of the topics we tend to do when we do masterclasses, for example, at events, we don't like to kind of necessarily go on stands. Our thing is to talk about wine. So we do masterclasses. And a classic one is, if you like this, you'll love that. A fairly standard kind of trope. But it's really important. It helps us if, for example, when you're putting together your sample list, we suggest certain styles. They're not always available. They are in the UK. We don't realize how lucky we are in the UK with the variety. It's so much hard. Even in the US, it can be quite challenging in certain states. We're very lucky. But so we have to, what are we looking for? What's the style that we're looking for? And this knowledge that we have will help us kind of, well, if you don't have that style, what is it that's kind of, what are you trying to show with this wine? Why don't you try this? But that also works for if you're buying wine, okay, I like an oaked white, oak Chardonnay is what I always have. I can't find any, which would be very strange if you couldn't find an oak Chardonnay. Can you imagine? But so you go, oh, well, maybe I'll try an oak Chenin. I happen to be somewhere which has good South African wines. And so it informs you. You work out what you like or what you think is interesting and you go into buying that. And so it just makes it, it could save you money. I don't think it does. I think you probably end up just justifying spending more money probably in the end.
Okay, fine. I was being positive.
Yes, exactly.
But actually, you just said it's perfect. I mean, I mentioned Fetească Regală, and for anybody who's never tried it, go and try it. But that actually for me, can be a perfect replacement for instance, Riesling, because it has this real like honeysuckle, peachy, it's really aromatic, it's really pretty. And so if you were going to have some Asian food or a pad thai, and you might normally think, you know what, I'm going to go for a Riesling, this is a perfect one to try. Anyone in the UK, M&S does a fantastic range. It's their Faum range, and they do a fab Fetească Regală for about £7. In fact, they also now do a Fetească Alba, which is more like Viognier-like. It's oilier, rounder, because there's less acidity, but still has all these gorgeous stone fruits and florals. So yeah, you are right. You're so right. Or if you like Cabernet Franc, try Mencia in Spain. Get to know the similar varieties, and you can have a lot of fun, can't you?
Yeah, that M&S range is fantastic, actually. Yeah, they have a really good kind of entry-level Xinomavro, which is one of the first places I tried. And talking about kind of clear reds with a bit of kick, it's such a wonderful wine. And to get it cheap as well is a bonus. But yeah.
Xinomavro, everyone, Greek. I mean, that is a fantastic, Xinomavro, spelt with an X.
Yeah.
Xinomavro.
It's fantastic. So good. And so good at Christmas as well, if you're having something a bit more robust. But anyway, we're in the middle of summer, so that's fine. But
no, because you can get Xinomavro as a rosé.
Yes.
And there are quite a few lovely examples out there. Certainly, again, in the UK, sorry if you are in a country with slightly less choice. But so we'll slowly start summing up this episode. You do sometimes teach with all of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your favorite part of being in the classroom?
I was teaching about 2 weeks ago in Calcutta with a hospitality school there, and it's, for me, I was doing a level 2, so we do level 1 to level 2. Level 2 is normally about 3 days. It can be entry level, and my favorite part is the very first session is when we're kind of calibrating the palate. So probably one of the main differences between there are lots of wine courses out there, and it's how you calibrate is probably one of the main differences, because I truly believe that, there are different courses for different needs and things like that, but where we will be different is in the calibration. So it's quite fun to teach them about what do we mean by body? What do we need? But if we say pronounced, what do we mean by this? And so you start doing all these funny things and, to help them, like, the one about body is quite often, depending on the country, you go things like water, milk and cream. But in countries where maybe dairy is not so useful, I go with things like mango juice, apple juice and water. And it's just fun to kind of interact and to get there for these very intelligent people, but they haven't necessarily done wine, but they get their light bulb moment and they associate it with something that they know a lot about. This isn't an example from me, but one of our colleagues in Dubai, we do a lot of work in Dubai, and there's a lot of entry-level staff happen to be from the Philippines, and we have to teach the life cycle of a grape. They don't know that much about a grape. So one of the teachers started talking about the life cycle of rice, because they completely understood. And of course, there are similarities about the time of year, bud burst. All these things are very similar, but just a different. So it's working out what your students need and how to kind of adapt to their needs, which make it really interesting. And that was the bit I enjoyed in Kolkata, because there were obviously some fundamental differences to how we've been brought up and our go-to smells, our go-to styles. So it was explaining that to them over a relatively decent bottle of wine.
Yeah, I love that. Relatively decent.
Yeah. I won't go in. Yeah.
Well, talking of relatively decent, was there a wine moment for you where you actually ever cracked open a bottle? Do you have a memory of a wine that you carry with you? Or drinking in a special place that someone can go and visit? Wine recommendation time.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of. Yeah, I'm crossing my arms because I'm trying to think. Oh, what can I think of? It was kind of a light bulb moment, but I don't know. It's more with the right people, I think, to be honest. So my mum is Spanish, and so anything given her the chance, they always would get something Spanish. I mean, she's from the wrong part. It's not a different part of Spain, from Rioja, but that's what she will get. But I mean, for me, it's more like, with my wife, just kind of when I was started to do all the WSET courses and trying all the different types of Pinot Noir. Now, actually, I probably had too much Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir is a very expensive pastime, as you well know. But I just remember having all the varieties of New Zealand Pinots and just enjoying and really understanding about, for me, getting into it, I found New World Pinot much easier to get into, and New World wine in general. I understood the flavors, not simpler or anything like that. Great wines, but just more accessible in terms of like the nose, and it brought me into the world. And then I started going off in kind of weird and haphazard ways. But I just remember just enjoying like a Martin Peppino or something like that. It wouldn't have been too much, like a Tetera, like 15 quid or something like that. And then the irony is I don't really drink that much Pinot Noir anymore. I'm always looking for something different now. But that was the thing that it just made me realize it's just fun, you know? And like I say, we've been talking about wine, but we do other courses. And so I haven't got a recent wine memory because I'm buying beer at the moment. I'm really getting into Saison beer. And so I'm just buying weird and wonderful things of that.
Saison?
Saison. So it's kind of a particular style, but it's just a general quaffing one. So a little bit of fruit, a little bit more acidity than normal. And I know this company in Sussex, which is just fabulous. The kind of ones you take a photo of, when you're having something, you're quite proud that you're buying this one, and you take a photo and show it to your friends, look what I'm drinking, and they go, oh yeah, that is nice. And for me, that buzz currently is with beer, but it's nice to go back to the day job of wine as well.
I love it. Well, if there was, okay, this is it. Last question. Make it good. No, if there was one thing that, I don't know, one thing that you think each of us, whether it's we're educators, students, we're just wine lovers, that we could do something in the wine industry or drinks or beer, spirits industry to make it more inclusive, to make it more diverse, what would it be?
Listen, I think, is what we need to do more of. Just like we've talked about examples of, just come and tell us what the issues are, because we can, we can stay curious. We can look for kind of how we can be better, but I will have a particular, because of my background, which I have no say in it, I will look at it in a particular way. So we need to listen to those opinions of others. One of the things, we're doing about accessibility is that we're making it's really important to us that we make sure that as many different voices as possible are being used in our materials, in our exams, in the way we teach. And that's by listening to other people, because that makes us as representative of as many people as possible. So that's it. Listen. That's simple, one word.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alex.
Thank
I have
you.
listened.
Thanks very much.
I hope everyone else has listened, because this is a podcast that's gone into their ears. And all of the information for WSET is in the show notes, so people can get in touch. So I appreciate your time.
Thank
And
you.
we'll speak soon. You take care. Thank you. That is it for today's episode. And if you've been listening thinking maybe it's time I take my wine studies a little more seriously, then you are going to find all the information you need about WSET courses in the show notes. Now, I'm a little sad to say that next week marks the final episode in my mini-series on diversity and inclusion in wine, but we are ending on a high. I'll be joined by none other than A.D. Smith, award-winning TV presenter, journalist, and an advocate for neurodivergence and LGBTQ+ voices in the food and drink space. We'll be talking about a few more wineries doing incredible work around inclusivity, A.D.'s experience navigating the wine world as someone living with Tourette's and as a proud member of the LGBTQ+ community, and of course sharing some under the radar wine region recommendations, because, well, what's a wine podcast without some juicy tips? Now, to wrap up, here is a quote to toast the power of education in wine, and here is one from Hugh Johnson, although I'm not sure if I've said this one before, but anyway, here it is. To learn about wine is to learn about life, culture, history, geography, and above all, joy. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, rate, and leave a review. It really helps make the podcast more discoverable for other wine lovers around the world. Wishing you a beautiful, positive week ahead. And until next Monday, wine friends, cheers to you.